Having trouble getting on Facebook. Just excuse me for a minute. I'm sorry here, but I'm having big trouble getting on Facebook today. This is Dr. George Westlake here. Sorry I'm late. I had trouble getting on Facebook today. I'm still not sure I'm on. I know I'm on YouTube, and they keep changing the screen on Facebook, and I'm easily confused on that. The Lord has been speaking to my heart about running the Christian race. Paul reminds us that all run in a race, but not everyone receives the prize. And he says, keep running that you may obtain. But I'm reminded of the book of Hebrews, chapter 12. Chapter 11, he lists the who's who of faith. Abel, okay? Enoch walked with God and he was not. Why? Because God took him. Talks about the faith of Abraham, talks about the faith of Sarah, talks about the faith of Moses, talks about all these people, and then says, so when you get to chapter 12, seeing we're compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. And he's actually picturing a Colosseum bigger than Arrowhead and witnesses piled up all around. Now, they're not spectators, and I think this verse has been misused. The Greek is very clear. They are witnesses. Well, what does it mean by they're witnesses rather than spectators? Well, spectators would be watching, but witnesses would be say, I've already run the race. I've already proved that God is able to keep me. I've already proved that even though I fail God, God is a forgiving God. I'm a witness to prove that as long as I make up my mind, I'm going to make it to the end, God will help me finish the course. And that's what he's talking about. Seeing we're compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, so many heroes and heroines of faith listed in Hebrews chapter 11 that have fought the fight, have run the race, have finished the battle, have overcome the enemy. Yes, every single one of them failed. Every single one of them fell short many times, but they managed to finish the race. The New Testament uses the word perseverance, that determination I'm going to go through. So the author of the book of Hebrews says, seeing we're compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us run with endurance the race that's set before us. Let us make up our mind that we're going to finish it. You see, the Christian life is not a 100-yard dash. It's the marathon. It starts, and from beginning to end, we have to keep on running, keep on running, keep on running. We need to finish the race. It's not him that starts well, but him that finishes the race. Seeing we're compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, says, let us lay aside every weight. Now, my billfold doesn't seem too heavy, but if I was outside and a big bear was chasing me, I wouldn't mind throwing it away so I could run faster. A weight is not something that's sinful, but it's something that hinders us from running our race the best. It can be a habit that we have that may not be sinful, but it takes too much of our time. It could be somebody we're hanging out with. It could be somebody that's actually hindering our faith rather than spending time with those that are building it up. We can become workaholics, and that can be a weight that can stop us from taking time to get alone with God. There can be so many weights, so many hindering things that the enemy can bring into our pathway to stop us from running the race. Lay aside every weight. And then the next phrase can be translated several ways. And the sin that stands around us looking so good. That's the idiom. Sin stands around us looking so good. The enemy can make sin look so good. Recall when Satan came to Eve, she saw the tree was good for food, but pleasant to the eyes. Oh, it looks so good. That's what he tried on Jesus. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time and said, you can have everything. He makes sin look so good. You've never seen Mr. and Mrs. Ugly in a beer commercial. Okay, you've never seen Mr. and Mrs. Ugly in a written cigarette commercial. No, you don't see that. He makes sin look good. He can make it look so attractive. He can say everybody's doing it. Well, everybody's not doing it. And so you have to lay aside the sin that looks so good. and run with determination. I was thinking this morning, right after I got up, when I was very young, younger than 10 years old, you could go down to the store with $1 and you could come back with a bag of groceries and have about 10 cents left to buy a whole bunch of penny candy. And my mother would send me down to the store back when it was safe in Detroit. I'm 88 now. This is when I was under 10. We moved away from there when I was under 10. And I'd be walking back and I'd have this big bag of groceries, and these big guys would be standing on the corner and say, "Hey, kid, come here. Come on over here. Got something to show you." "No, my mama wants me at home." "Hey, kid, come here. I want you to come over." "No, I can't. My mama wants me at home." Well, that's the kind of determination we need to have. My father wants me at home. He wants me to finish the race. He wants me to have that determination. He wants me to have that perseverance. And so he says, looking away from them. And again, every one of these heroes or heroine of faith failed, the ones that he spends a lot of time on. I have mentioned frequently that Abraham and Sarah laughed when God gave them the promise about a son, when Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90. Wouldn't you? Suppose you went to a local hospital and saw some old guy walking around and say, "What are you doing here, old timer?" "Well, my wife can have a baby." "Oh, you have a young wife?" "Yeah, kid's only 90. Wouldn't you laugh too? And so Abraham and Sarah laughed. Moses failed so many times he failed God. But look at Jacob, who became Israel. He failed time after time after time after time after time. And so we don't look at them. We look at the fact that they finished the race. But it says, looking away to Jesus, the pioneer and the completer of our faith, who instead of the joy that was set before him, the joy he had in heaven as God the Son, instead of the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus Christ. And it means away from everything else. You know, it can be like Peter. He said, "Lord, if it's you, bid me to come out of the boat and walk on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And he got on the boat and started walking on the water, but he got his eyes off Jesus. He listened to the howling wind. He looked at the big waves. And instead of keeping his eyes on Jesus, he sank. That can happen to us in the midst of the storms like we're going through now. So many people have lost their jobs. So many people are in danger of so many things. The cure may be worse than the disease. And we live in these difficult times. We need to keep our eyes on Jesus. The author says, "You have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin." I remind you that the church, the Hebrew church, was a persecuted church, probably the Jewish Christian church in Rome. And they were being persecuted for two reasons, because they were Jewish and because they were Christian. And it looked very difficult. It looked bad. So he said to keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes fixed on him. That's the way you're going to finish the course. That's the way you're going to make it. Because we have to keep running the race. If we keep running the race, someday we'll stand in his presence and be able to say with the Apostle Paul, "I've fought a good fight. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give to me on that day, and not to me only, but all them that love his appearing." And Paul reminds us that we're striving not toward a corruptible crown, but an incorruptible crown. I have an illustration that I used many years ago talking about this. Mary Baker, in the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles, was expected to run the 3,000 meters. And with only 200 meters left to go, Zola Budd caught in on her and she fell. Paul warns the Galatians, "You did run a good race. Who cut in on you?" And that can happen. The enemy can cut in on us. And that sin that says, and that phrase that says the sin stands around us looking so good, can also mean the sin that easily encompasses us. The sin that easily gets a hold of us. You know, you give the enemy a finger, he's going to grab your hand. You give him your hand, he's going to grab your arm. You give him your arm, he's going to pull you in. So we look away from the circumstances, away from the situations, and we look to Jesus, the pioneer, the one who went before him, blazed the trail. and he's able to complete our faith. He's able to keep that I've committed to him against that day, says the Apostle Paul. But I have to be willing to lay aside the weight. I have to be willing to lay aside the sin that stands around looking so good and focus my mind on him. We can look at the lives of these heroes and heroines of faith and the fact of the failures and all the things they went through. They can still witness to us and say, we made it. God kept us by his power, and God is able to keep you. I wasn't going to use this illustration today. I was going to use it another day. But let me see if I can find it here. There's an article in the August 5th, 1992 USA Today. And by the way, you can actually see this. You can look it up. You can actually see it online now. But in the Barcelona Olympics, a 400-meter race. Okay, Derek Redmond was expected to win that race easily. And suddenly, when he got near the end, there was a sharp pop, and he fell 250 meters back. I'm out of the Olympics. He had pulled his hamstring, and he laid there on the track, finishing all this effort. I'm not going to be able to finish the race. But he said, I'm going to finish. So he pulled himself up and started hobbling toward the finish line. I'm going to make it. The race was over, but the crowd began to cheer and began to holler. Jim Redmond, his dad, way up in the stands, ran down the stairs, ran through the security, jumped over the fence, ran and grabbed his son. And Daryl, with his face in his father's shoulder, together, they finished the race with the crowd screaming and rejoicing and shouting for him. You may feel like you're ready to give up, but I'm reminded you that God the Son laid aside the form of God, invaded the devil's territory. And when you need that strength, he's there to give it to you. You can finish it by his grace. He is able to keep that I've committed unto him against that day. Lay aside the weight, lay aside the sin, and get your mind focused on Jesus and know that he's there. And by his help and his grace, you can finish the race. I want to remind you again that on Wednesday nights, I'm teaching Revelation at Sheffield Family Life Center, and it's available on the web, sflc.net. And if you go to that website and look up YouTube, it has the former ones on YouTube on our website. I just found that out last night. Now they keep the current one just on the regular pages of local sermons. The sermons or the messages that have been preached. But you can go back and check the old ones, and it's under YouTube at sflc.net, and just look up YouTube. And they're keeping them there because a lot of people want to look back and see the other things. But the book of Revelation shows what's going to take place next, and we live in exciting times. That's from 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm stammering terrible today. Glad I don't do that when I preach. From 7 o'clock until 8:30 on Wednesday nights, I'm teaching on Revelation and Daniel at Sheffield Family Life Center, sflc.net. And then I want to remind you to send your questions in for Living Answers for Today, which is on Tuesday night from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. And I'll be answering questions that you have about the Word of God and living the Christian life. And you can send your questions in to drgwwjr, drgwwjr@gmail.com, and we'll answer those questions on Tuesday night, or you can put them in the comment section while we're on live, and they'll be written down and handed to me. Thank you for watching this brief devotion. I was having a terrible time getting on today, and they keep changing the screen, and it looks different every day almost. And I'm not the cleverest about getting on the web, but thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Have a great day in Jesus Christ.